Hey, it's Bitty Penny. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a mass make of 6x6 junk journals. We're making flip-flop journals. Who's surprised? No one? I know. Sorry. So I have this 12 by 12 pad. I know I said 6x6 paper, but this pad of paper makes me just giddy inside. I think this is my favorite paper pad ever. Maybe at least this one and one other. But yeah, I love it. So anyways, I wanted to use it. So I'm going to pick two sheets of this 12 by 12 paper, and I'm going to cut it down to 6x6. I was making these junk journals for a breast cancer group of women battling breast cancer. So I wanted pink, but I didn't want it to be like overly focused on that topic, if you know what I mean. There are also prayer journals. Okay. So I needed to make a few of them. They are going to be given with prayer shawls that my mother is making for the group. So, I am using this paper pad and then some random things from my stash to come up with these. I've got a very simple tutorial here for you guys. And this is a fabulous mass make, like for craft fairs or groups of friends or donation. 6x6 paper, score at 3 inches. This is a vertical score, okay, so that you want your paper upright at this point where you're scoring at 3 inches. If there's writing or a design, all of my papers today are non-directional because it just makes life easier, and I like that. So I'm taking all 8 of these pages and I'm scoring them all exactly the same at 3 inches. Okay, covers scored, done, ready to go. I have 8.5 by 11 tea-dyed paper. Now, each one of these 4 journals has 2 signatures, okay? So I'm putting 2 sheets of 8.5 by 11 once they're cut down in each signature of the journals. All I'm doing is taking 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I am cutting it at 5.5 on the 11-inch side. Okay? Bam. Done. That's all the cutting that I need to do for the 8.5 by 11. And these are just going to be gorgeous in these little journals. They're also going to provide a ton of journaling space. I have this paper pad, which is the lighter, more like copyweight paper, which I absolutely love for journal pages. This one's from Park Lane and it's called Heirloom. And I am picking 3 sheets of this to go in each signature, right? So 6 patterns all together. So all I need is 6 pages of this 12 by 12 paper because I'm going to cut them down to 6x6. So I'll have plenty of paper for each journal. So I pick 6 patterns and then I will trim that down to where they're 6x6, and then I'll score them at 3 inches. Or just fold them in half. I mean, with this flimsy, thinner paper, I say flimsy, and that might have a negative connotation that I'm not trying to imply. It is perfect for what we're using it for. But there are my 6 patterns that I chose. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this down to 6x6. And then again, score at 3 inches or fold it in half on the vertical edge because some of these are directional now. So I'm just going to, make sure that they're upright even when I'm cutting them. I don't want to cut this in a way to where things would be too funky. Again, keeping it simple. So I need 4 sheets of my tea-dye paper for each journal. And I needed 6 sheets of the patterned paper for each journal. I'm keeping the formula incredibly simple because I'm mass producing and I would recommend it to anyone else. I imagine that I'll be making a whole bunch of these. So I love that I have a formula. My brain just works that way and it makes me happy. So these were already scored, but they had not been burnished yet. So that's what I'm going to do now. All right, so I have 4 of the gold foiled and 4 of this blooming, beautiful paper here. And we're going to use 1 of each for each journal cover. Okay, so here comes our journal cover construction. All right, I want to make sure these are all burnished before I even get started. And I'm just going to burnish these down. And then I will take 1 of each and my glue, and I am going to glue just one side down to the other. Okay, so watch this. So I opened one like a card, if you will, and then I glued the other one on the inside of that. Now I know it's upside down to what I'm describing, but here it is. So it's like a mini slimline card, and some of you may not know what that means, but this is the direction you want it, so that as you open it, every time you open it, it's opening to the left every time the journal opens. So you open it up that way, like you're opening a greeting card, and then you glue the other piece the opposite direction down. You see that? See how this works? I just want to make sure that this is clear, because that is your journal construction. Now you could take this to your sewing machine and stitch around it if you wanted to. I'm sure there's just a ton of options. Again, this is a mass making project for me. These are all for donation, so I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going to stitch it. All right, so I'm taking all my pattern paper and I'm folding all of this the exact same way. So all of this is going to be folded in half. All right, so these all measure 3 by 6, just like our cover. There might be a little overhang, but I'm really not worried about that. So I stick those 3 in the first signature. I'll stick the next 3 in the second signature of this little journal. And then what I'm going to do, I picked 3 pattern papers and 2 tea dye, because the tea dye are going to separate the pattern paper. So it's going to go pattern paper, tea dye, pattern paper, tea dye, pattern paper. We're all on the same page. Okay, now here on these, I am not just folding these in half. Instead, I am folding these to make little flip outs. I didn't trim them down. These pages measure 8.5 by 5.5, because we took the 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and we cut it at 5.5. So it's 8.5 by 5.5, and I'm just going to do a mixture of things. Now, for you, you might be more comfortable if you used a scoreboard, because of course you don't want these, likely you don't want these to be more than 3 inches. And you can just score your paper if you want to, rather than eyeballing it. But, it's just not necessary, since you already, I suggest you have your pattern paper and your cover done before you do this portion. And then that way you could use them as a guide. But for me, again, because I'm mass producing, I'm found my happy place of where I wanted to score these. And I scored all of my tea dyed paper the exact same way. Again, it's a formula. But I don't have to put them in the book the same way, because there's no stamping on these yet. So it's okay if I turn them upside down, sideways, whatever way I want to turn them, to get variety. And that is how I built my signatures. They're super adorable. And even though these journals are tiny, they're pretty mighty with the amount of journaling space that they have in them. Obviously, I'm making these for women battling breast cancer, and they're potentially, most likely, statistically not junk journalers. So I am making writing journals with junk journal flair. I think that you know, it's funny, it's not necessarily my style, but it's what y'all see me do the most because I find myself making journals for people who don't junk journal. And so I try to make a beautiful writing journal that has the junk journal flair to it. It has pockets, it has flips, but it's not too much, if you know what I mean. And then sometimes I go completely artistically crazy with it because I just want to have fun and make a junk journal with all the flips and tricks. Now, this is what I highly recommend. Go ahead and secure both of your signatures at one time, okay? And I'm just using paper clips because these are rather small little journals. And I'm doing this in a mass making style. So I do each step at once. I cut all my paper at once. I fold it all at once. I made all my covers at once. And now I'm going to stitch these all at the same time, just one at a time. I am going to flip this paper back here with my fingers and see how I'm holding that back. And that way it doesn't get punctured. And I'm going to show you that. When I'm pushing my awl through the spine here, I'm just making sure that my papers are folded back really well. And that way I don't, accidentally poke holes in them because that would be sad. I don't want holes in them. And then I will do the basic 3-hole pamphlet stitch on these, which you may have seen me do a number of times or other people. But yeah, that's just my preferred way of binding. And I'm telling you, if it feels intimidating at first, just stick with it. And in no time, you just won't even have to think about it. You'll just be likely, you'll just keep doing it. I find that the 3-hole pamphlet stitch gives me the most variety in the types of journals that I make. So I can make a flip-flop, I can make a single signature, I can make a 5-signature journal and a hardbound book. I mean, it gives me so much flexibility and so many options. I measured 3 lengths of my height of my book to determine the length of my string, and then you guessed it, I'm going to go ahead and measure all these at once, cut them all at once, and then I will have all of my strings ready. So I need 2 per book. I'm making 4 or 5. I'm making 4. That's right. I'm making 4 books, so I need 8 strings in all. So now I've got all of that measured out. I'm good to go. This saves so much time over having to measure it each time, cut it, sew it in, measure, cut, sew, measure, cut. So that takes a lot of time. Where if you just do the steps as I'm showing you, it'll save you a whole lot of time. I really recommend, and so I repeat it, I know, I'm sorry, but I repeat it often, that having your pages securely clipped into your book while you're doing your stitching will save you so much time and hopefully prevent lots of headaches. Always put your thread one on each side of that center thread that's running down the middle, and tie it off a couple of times, put it in a bow, don't put it in a bow, make it short, make it long, add charms, do whatever you like. But just like that, you will have your pages bound together. I find if I do not clip like I've done here and I don't really secure my pages in, then it's just hard to find the holes. My needle doesn't go all the way through. It just makes things more difficult. I find this to be a real time saver. I made ephemera for this, but that really wasn't the focus of this video. I really wanted y'all to see the construction and the method and understand my process for mass making little journals like this. That was the takeaway I really wanted y'all to have. But I grabbed a Dollar Tree stamp set, some beautiful ink that I love so much, the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, And I just used random little scraps of paper and just made really simple ephemera for these. Again, I didn't put, the funny thing about these little prayer journals is I didn't put any scripture in them or anything. I did put some prayer cards in them, which you'll see, I think, in a minute. But I kept them pretty basic and generic, but they're beautiful at the same time. I wanted them to be something that anyone could use. And so I chose, and for the organization that I wanted to give these to, I couldn't have them be like too religious. As funny as that may sound when you're making a prayer journal, it's just when you're donating to different organizations, you just have to be mindful of what their parameters are. And so I would always encourage you, if before you make things to donate, find out what they accept and what they don't accept, etc., etc., etc. I need to go back and watch that movie. Anyways, The King and I, come on. I haven't seen that in so long. Oh, I'm getting distracted. I used Project Life cards and just taped them in with some of my fun alcohol ink tape and really did keep things simple until it came to the closures. I kind of went overboard. But before I get there, I did use this deep red little praying angel. And then these are the kind of faux prayer cards. They're printables from Twisted Paper Studios. And so I printed those up, and I'm going to put 2 in each signature. And I'm going to put this little praying angel from Deep Red Stamps on the cover of all of my journals. I started with this big like dome die, but it was a little too big, so I do end up cutting it down. I mean, it wasn't too big for the cover, but it was going to cover more of the paper and more of the ribbon than I really wanted it to. So I end up using a smaller version of the same die, and I cut that out. This just made me think of like Little Thrones, like, I don't know, that he's at the throne. That's what I thought of. I don't know. And then I went to my fabric stash, and I really liked this green with the papers. And so I ripped up a few strips of these to use as my ribbon. I did not measure it. You'll just have to measure based on how thick your journals are and how much ribbon you want on yours. This is where I think I probably went overboard. I know my mother does not like my big bow closures, but hopefully whoever receives these journals will. So yeah, they have lots of thread, and I just glued the thread on, and then I glued my ephemera on top, and then I weighted them down and set them to the side and let them completely dry. Now, on my pages inside my journal, I did use stamps and things to help decorate them, like with flowers and birds and just real simple images. And I used a very light color, like a very soft brown. Do y'all keep those strings? I do. I call them my bird's nest. I have a bag full of them. It's my bird's nest of thread. But yeah, I just went through, and of course, because I'm in the mass making mode, I did all the journals at the same time. Now, one journal, I used a different thread. I used a silk chiffon thread, which was gorgeous, but I was going to run out of it if I used it for all of my journals. So let me show you. You don't want to glue this thread down to the back of your cover. You're only gluing where I showed you on that front cover underneath the angel. That's the only place. Otherwise, your thread or your ribbon needs to be completely loose. If you glue it anywhere else, you will seal your journal shut. So see how it's loose here? It totally flips open and flips and flips and flips. The only place for your ribbon is that front, whatever you designate as your front cover. Otherwise, it just folds over, towards the back of your back cover. I hope this process is very clear to you, and maybe you'll have to come back and watch it more than once. But I really tried and strived to give you the clearest instructions that I could. So let's flip through one of these together. See, I've got little prayer cards in the pocket, but I did keep them pretty basic. And even though they're basic, you can see my stamping. I think they're beautiful, really sweet, really serene and beautiful. I hope that they serve others well and that they feel loved and, encouraged and supported when they receive these journals. I made these a few weeks ago and lost some footage and had some problems, but I'm so delighted I get to share it with you. I was going to be so bummed if I didn't get to share this tutorial with you guys. Of course, I'm going to be making more of these. I think it's just such a great way to use up our 6x6 paper. And they're fast, they're fun, they're easy, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be just as fun for someone to actually use, to receive and use. Obviously, these don't have to be a donation. As I said, they could have been in a craft fair, and they make up so quickly. I will definitely be putting some of these on my craft fair table. I just really enjoyed the whole process of making them. I hope you feel inspired. I hope that, you might give this a try. Thank you so much for spending some of your sweet, sweet time here with me. I always appreciate it so much. And if you're facing a battle and you need some prayer, you just let me know in the comments down below, and I will definitely pray for you. I was saying my prayers the other night, and I just said a prayer for everyone who has ever watched my videos. I just figured I would blanket everybody with a little bit of prayer. So yeah, just let me know in the comments down below. Here are the finished journals. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye.